One Nights with Maury. My aunt and uncle moved into a new house. I was staying with them for a week, but I got a weird vibe about their house. I was sleeping in the attic and, around 3 a.m., I woke up to find my 6-year-old cousin standing next to my bed. He started telling me about his imaginary friend, Maury. The next day, when I asked his parents about it, they told me he didn't have an imaginary friend when they lived in their previous house. They decided to ask him about it, but he said he had no idea what they were talking about. The next night, around 3 a.m., I woke up again to find my little cousin staring at me. He kept repeating over and over, "Why'd you tell? Why'd you tell? Why'd you tell?" I tried to talk to him and he started telling me about how Maury would appear in his dreams at night and eat dinner with the family when they were at the table. I asked him how he met Maury and he told me that Maury came to him and asked him if he could come inside him. He said, "Yeah, sure, come on in." That's when Maury started come to his bedside every night and talk to him. The next day, I told his parents but they didn't believe me. They thought I was making it up. On my final night in the house, I was awoken by a faint thumping under my bed. At this point, I was very scared, but I worked up the courage to peek under my bed. I found my little cousin hiding under there. "I'm protecting you from Maury," he said. "He can't trust you and he needs you gone. Maury won't hurt you if I protect you." Those were the last words I heard him say. I ran faster than I ever have before and made it at least 3 blocks down the road before my aunt and uncle caught up with me and begged me to stop. They asked me what had happened and when I told them, they didn't believe me. When we walked back to the house and went upstairs, my cousin was in his bed, sound asleep. I left the next morning and never went back. To Jacob the Lumberjack. I was looking after a 5-year-old boy and he told me that a man named Jacob, who was dressed like a lumberjack, was sitting next to me on the couch. He must have seen the look of shock on my face and said, "Don't worry. He doesn't have arms." 3. Sally the Murderer. My daughter had an imaginary friend named Sally. She once told me about how Sally was in jail for chopping her mom's head off. 4. The Creeper Man. From the age of 3, my son always told me about the Creeper Man, who lives in my mom and dad's bedroom. He brings it up after he visits them. I made the mistake once of asking what the man looks like. My son said, "Oh, he doesn't have a face." 5. Emily. When my sister was 6 or 7, she had an imaginary friend named Emily. She told us Emily was the same age as her, lived in her closet, wore an old black dress and had long dark hair. My sister played with Emily constantly and my parents started noticing she was acting weird. She was very distant and just sat in the middle of her room whispering to Emily. One day, my brother was walking by and my sister was sitting in the middle of her room. She suddenly turned around and hissed at him. It scared because she didn't even look like our sister. My parents ran up to her room and I could hear my sister screaming and screaming, "Get out! Get out!" as loud as she could. I have no idea what happened in that room, but when the screaming stopped, I saw my parents holding my sister and they were crying their eyes out. She was sobbing as well. Years later, I asked her about it and she told me that Emily used to tell her to do horrible things to herself. She actually used to wake up on the roof and couldn't remember how she got there. Apparently Emily absolutely hated our parents, so she tried to turn my sister against them. When we moved into a different house, Emily was gone. I'm just relieved we left that house. 6. The blurry people. When I was a kid, I had several imaginary friends and they would always surround me and look down on me. I'll always remember what they looked like. They didn't have any sort of distinguished features, but rather they were just shadowy silhouettes. They rarely spoke to me, but my mom told me that when I was alone in my room, I would have lengthy conversations with what seemed like a bunch of people. They were always just sort of there. 7. The captain. A mother told me that she was concerned because her son talked about a ghost who would talk to him and play with him in his room. He said the ghost was called the captain and he was an old man with a beard. He said the captain told him when he grows up his job will be to kill people, and the captain would tell him who needed to be killed. The kid would cry and say he doesn't want to be a killer, but the captain told him he didn't have a choice and he would get used to killing after a while. The boy also told a girl in his class, "I know where you live, and you might be good at hiding, but I'll still find you." 8. The evil rabbit. When my cousin was 5, she had a stuffed rabbit that she carried everywhere with her. She even talked to it. One day, while I was watching her, she was sleeping on the couch. Suddenly, she woke up and started shouting at her rabbit for no reason. She was yelling over and over, "No! You can't do that. That's bad. Don't do it." I asked her what was wrong, but she wouldn't listen to me. I finally had to take the rabbit up to her room, and when I came back down she was asleep on the couch again. I have no idea what that rabbit was planning to do. 9. Roger. My little brother had an imaginary friend named Roger who lived under our coffee table. He said Roger had a wife and 9 kids. Roger and his family lived peacefully under our coffee table for 3 years. Then, one day, my little brother announced that Roger wouldn't be around anymore. When we asked him why, he told us he shot and killed Roger and his whole family. I don't know if he remembers any of this today, but his genuine lack of remorse was very disturbing. 10. The Easter Bunny. When I was 16, I had to babysit for twin boys who were in the 3rd grade at the time. They always spoke about a man in an Easter bunny costume, and they were terrified of him. One day I was babysitting, and one twin was in the shower. His brother and I were sitting downstairs watching TV when all of a sudden, he said, "You need to go check on Matt." Seconds later, we heard Matt yelling from upstairs, "He's in here. He's in here." I ran upstairs, and I had to check every room before he would calm down. I'm not sure which part of the experience freaked me out the most. 11. Shaggy. When my mom was young, she had an imaginary friend named Shaggy. When she got a little older, she told her mother she was finished with Shaggy, so she got rid of him. My grandmother asked her what she meant and she said, "I chopped him up and put him in the fridge." 12. I can't kill him. When my brother was little, he acted like he had imaginary friends who were talking to him every second. One day, my mom overheard him say, "I can't kill him. He's my only dad." 13. Car crash. When I was little, I had a whole gang of imaginary friends. One day my mom noticed I hadn't talked about them in a while and asked me what happened to them. I calmly told her that they had all died in a car crash.